Good evening. Monday, September 16th, regular meeting of the Windsor Heights City Council. Roll call.
Susan Spears.
Here.
Joseph Jones.
Here.
Michael Libby.
Here.
Lauren Campbell.
Here.
Teresa Harms.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Susan Spears.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Item 3, public forum. This is the time set aside for comments from the public on topics of city business other than those listed on the agenda. No action may be taken. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments to no more than 5 minutes.
My name is Keaton Weiss. I live at 1938 63rd Street. I've noticed that in the year and a half I've lived in Windsor Heights, there have been 9 accidents at 63rd and Franklin. I'm asking on city leaders to try to work with Des Moines to try and get a stoplight there. It is a Muslim there. It is fairly much every crossing. I know it's a DOT thoroughfare, but we need to find something to get done. Additionally, I have noticed that overnight, there seems to be a lot of street racing, drag racing, and people going way over the speed limit on that road. If we could get a heavier police presence on the road at night, it'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Keaton, what was your address?
1938 63rd Street.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keaton.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, my name's Randy Manning. I live down on 7254 El Rancho Avenue, where all the road construction's going on right now.
The beginning of the road construction.
Yeah, the first phase. Anyway, there's been a lot of work going on down there, but there's been a lot of times where there hasn't been any work going on. Now, I know we've had some rain days. I've worked construction all my life. I know that you can work in a little bit of mud, ain't gonna hurt you, okay? And another thing is, I got an issue. I live right on the corner of El Rancho, and the grade is about 5 foot up from the curb, top of the curb to my yard.
It's a cliff.
Yeah, it is a
Where it
cliff.
used to be-
I was
it
a,
was a riding lawnmower to go down.
right,
Now it's a cliff. And we're gonna have a retaining wall.
or
And
something
I don't
there.
know if they're gonna pay for it. We're here to get assurance it's gonna get a retaining wall because that's the only thing that's gonna save our front corner.
Nobody's been down there to look at it whatsoever from the city. Any of the city workers, I hardly ever see them down on site anyway. So let's get on the ball and let's get something taken care of. I've mowed my yard the whole time I've lived there since 2009. I was able to mow it with a riding mower. Now they've cut back in my yard at least 5 foot or better.
Yeah, and there's a telephone pole, a new telephone pole right there in the corner. And they're like inches away from it. And when they do go to grade it, they're gonna expose.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do
That's
on
another
that.
issue. Telephone pole on the whole corner of El Rancho and 73rd.
And then I've had all these trucks in my yard, loaders, everything else, tore the whole thing up.
Which they said that they'd sod it and water it.
But,
But
not the whole yard.
no, but we've had a end loader parked in my front yard last week. I looked out my window and I went, oh, they can park in people's yards now.
Maybe I
So,
have some pictures I can pass around here.
I mean, that was a one time, but we've had traffic coming through, cutting through our yard at the beginning to get off the construction.
Mr. Manning, have you, or either of you spoken to anyone, I guess, from Bolton and Mink?
Yep.
Anyone? Okay,
All the time.
Yep, I talk to Tanner all the time,
okay,
almost at least once a week,
okay.
for sure.
And the issue is still not being rectified?
Well, we don't
He,
know.
they're trying to figure it out.
Okay,
I think
So,
we're up in the air on the retaining wall. I think
Okay.
they just want to sod it and leave it. And
yeah,
that's unacceptable.
well, this is what one of the guys told me. He goes, I'm gonna grade it just like I grade anybody else's property.
Mhm.
So that means he's just gonna taper it down, that's it, you know, there's no way you can taper that down from a 5-foot fall within probably about 5 feet straight down.
Right?
go ahead. Thank you for asking.
That's the cliff. That's our corner.
Oh, I see.
And did I get your address at 7254 El
Yep.
Rancho?
El Rancho, right on the corner in a yellow house.
Yeah. See the
725.
telephone pole there? It's gonna be exposed.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they just put a brand new telephone pole in there. I'm sure Mid-America doesn't want to come back and redo all them lines and lower the pole.
Hmm.
You know, that should have been done before. This should have been all coordinated with all the contractors, what was going on there. And they seen this grade on, because my corner is the worst corner out of all of them as far as dirt up on the bank that's high. And now they've cut that corner, they widened the street to 27 foot. I asked the guy, I'm like, what's that jog? Because he's jogging into my land. And he goes, well, we have to widen the street. Nobody ever said anything about widening the street there to me on the side streets. Anybody say anything to you guys? Nobody knows anything about the construction.
I don't have it memorized from
If-
from before.
You're gonna be out there. I think you could tell them what you just told me.
City staff is out there with our engineer and the construction team every Thursday at noon. We'd be happy to. So stop over there, take a look, have a conversation with you at that point.
I probably won't be able to be there.
We can schedule another time that's more
Yeah.
convenient for you as well.
Probably best evening.
How about, and can we get your number? Would you write it down?
Yeah.
We'll take it.
515-979-8036. Randy Manning.
What time are you typically available?
Probably anytime after, probably 6.
We'll figure out a time to meet with you over there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
No, Danielle's on the line, but she is interested in the deer hunting item.
Okay.
I would just offer up a quick comment on 63rd Street signal. I don't know, Justin, did you get a chance to put a pen to paper at all as far as what a traffic study would be cost wise for potential signal there? I know it's complicated because there's DOT involvement, City of Des Moines involvement is they control the east side of the street, but going through the process of looking at traffic signal there would require a study most likely with the DOT. So just ask Justin to take a look at the cost of that. So.
I know we did a study for college crossing too previously. So. Fair enough. I'm familiar. I have a rental on Franklin, so.
Why is this one more complicated? Cities.
It has a signal.
Oh, got it. As opposed to the cross walk. Got it. Yep. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, but I think, you'll have a chance to look at, speak to public safety as well, as far as accidents.
Yeah, we'll take a
Okay.
look what the accident rate there is and talk about patrol options there for both City of Des Moines and Windsor Heights.
Mr. Weiss, did you hear that? Didn't mean to, sorry. Move over. But talk to public safety as far as accidents goes, as well as additional patrol options on 63rd. And as well as the traffic safety study and cost sharing possibilities, of course. You're welcome.
You'll bring it back to the information.
We'll have some follow-up information for you.
So with my address, it is actually a group home. So the person that reported our group in the city, I don't think we are working with the landlord to try and get that fence issue rectified, just want to let you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item 4, consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
Item 5A, discussion on the Windsor's University Avenue access. AJ.
I think I'll first turn it over to Jennifer McCoy. She's online with Bolton and Mink. She gave the original traffic study kind of report to you when we looked at the Windsor site plan, just to refresh everybody's memory of what we were looking at that point and some of the options that were discussed. Jen, if you want to kind of talk us through that. Great.
Sure. Can I screen share? Okay, let's try this. Perfect. Okay. So this is just a copy of my staff report from when this item was first brought forward when we were talking about the best location for that driveway. And I mentioned at the time that when considering the location and the access for the Windsor apartments, 3 things should be looked at. That would be SUDAS, or the city code driveway spacing requirements, available site distance, and then that driveway location to the intersection influence area of 63rd Street. As you know, 63rd Street has continued to grow in the amount of traffic that intersection is handling, and you are seeing queues and upwards of 500 feet in a block and a half, typically in the PM peak hour. And so all those things kind of factor into when we look at access and its right placement, or the best placement, I guess, would be for access. So one of the things we look at is site distance. So when it comes to site distance, if this is if 60 is the same for 64th Street versus if the driveway were to go directly across, site distance is right borderline. So the required site distance is 300 feet and the measured site distance is 290. And I think I just wanted to show this kind of on an aerial. I just had an aerial up here. Sorry, just a second. Why this is important when it comes to this intersection. So, sorry. Okay.
Hold on that photo.
See, it's being very slow. So that 300 feet is measured from this intersection to 64th Street. And so we're basically right at the minimum of what's needed for site distance. So when a vehicle pulls off of 63rd Street, there's only about 300 feet for a vehicle on 64th Street to see that vehicle pulling off of 63rd Street. But there's not a lot of time for a vehicle coming off of 63rd Street to react to a vehicle that may be pulling out from 64th Street, or a vehicle pulling out of what was kind of the originally proposed driveway location. So we looked at the ability to move this driveway further west for 2 reasons. One is that existing queue today, maybe I can show this on this figure I tried to make here. That existing queue today is approximately 500 feet.
Jen, could you zoom in, please?
Go further.
Just zoom in. There you go. Thank you.
You can see it. Perfect. Okay. That existing queue today is approximately 500 feet. So this is the 64th Street intersection. I mentioned that 290 foot of site distance. I know the discussion today is to consider moving this driveway further west. I support that for 2 reasons. One is it keeps us further away from that intersection influence area. That intersection influence area, ideally you would not have driveways within the area of the queue. And the other piece that it does is it gets the distance away from 63rd Street as well, right? So somebody pulling out of this driveway has more time to react to people pulling off of 63rd and people pulling off of 63rd and coming in off of University. One thing it does do by moving that driveway further west is it offsets these intersections. I'm going to see if I can just kind of close this bar. Sorry, just a second. Let me see if I can move this bar. Okay. I'm going to get my kind of pin here. So, okay. So when somebody is, so today these, okay, so it gives you more time. Somebody reacting here coming out of this driveway has more time to look left and look right and respond to this traffic over here. Now, when we offset these intersections, we only have about 100 feet. So what happens is somebody, SUDAS recommends 200 feet, and that's for two reasons. So somebody pulling out of here to make this right turn, and someone pulling out of here to make this left turn, you end up with a conflict point here. Same way if somebody is trying to pull in to make this left turn, and someone is trying to pull in to make this left turn, oops, you end up with a conflict point. And so it's part of the reason why we're talking about extending this median potentially to make this 64th Street right in and right out. It doesn't fully eliminate this conflict, but it does eliminate this overlapping left turns that can happen in the middle of the street here. It also provides greater distance. It also means this person making a left turn is not having to look at what's coming on University, what's coming, let's see, make this a different color. This person making this left turn is not having to worry about what traffic is coming off of University, what traffic is coming here, and potentially what traffic could be pulling out of other driveways. And so by making this right in, right out, it eliminates those other conflicts. The other thing that it does, I'm just going to clear this a little bit. The other thing that this does is it allows you to clear this one a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to do this on my, clean this up a little bit. Okay. The other thing it does is allows for a longer left turn lane. So if we are looking at this left turn lane here, we know today that this is a pretty long movement, right? This left turn extends quite a bit. The longer this left gets, the more it adds to the through queue. So by moving this, putting this in this median, it allows us to get more storage length for this left turn, which is a really good thing to help the operations of your intersection at 63rd Street. So that is why we're proposing a raised median to clarify the movements at the intersection, to improve the situation of the close proximity of 64th Street today to 63rd Street, and also to allow for the ability to lengthen the eastbound left turn lane at 63rd Street and University. So I know that was kind of a lot of things to walk through, but those are the main reasons why we're proposing what we're proposing. So
Jen, just
one,
kind of
actually one more.
the options, the recommended solution from Bolton Mink would be to put a raised median on University and extend that further west past 64th Street so that 60
Correct.
becomes a right in, right out,
Mhm.
full access for the Windsor further to the west there.
Yes.
You talked through kind of alternative options as well there as far as signage or retaining full access on both sides of University as well.
Right. Talk through that option.
Yes, please.
Okay, so if it were to stay, if the driveway is to stay in its current configuration, kind of right here.
You're not sharing anymore.
Oh, thank you. I forgot to hit the share button. I always forget that second step. Okay. So if the driveway were to hit right here, then you still have those same concerns like I talked about of that close proximity to the 63rd Street intersection. This driveway is within the influence area of this intersection. And it's also within this queuing. So what's of concern then is if somebody in the PM peak were to want to leave, let's see, want to leave this intersection. So they're waiting here. They're, maybe somebody on University's nice and they stop and let them out. And then there's cars here, there's cars here. There's, and they can't see. This person cannot see this vehicle that pulls off of University and is traveling here. And then there's a chance for collision right here. So that is one of the reasons we're looking to pull this further away from the intersection, because this is in the influence area of the intersection, but really it's where all the queuing occurs today. The other thing is if we keep this driveway here, we now have to create a little left turn bay for this driveway, because otherwise one left turning vehicle sitting here would basically block all your traffic on University. So you have to create a left turn bay. It can be short to handle the anticipated demand, but now you've completely eliminated your ability to ever lengthen your eastbound left turn. So this eastbound left turn will stay as it is today, and there will be no additional ability to add capacity to this movement, which is highly needed especially as this movement continues to grow. So keeping the intersection aligned from 64th Street just really limits your ability to help what's happening at 63rd and University intersection, especially for this eastbound approach. One other thing why I'm sharing I wanted to bring up is just the existing crash data. I brought this up in my staff report previously, but this is how your crashes look today. And this is looking at crashes from since the 3-lane was done until today. You can see there really is a clustering at 64th Street. A lot of these are rear end related crashes, which are often caused by, congestion related crashes. And so, but it just goes to show you that, this is not just a perceived problem and could be a problem. It's an actual problem as far as crashes occurring in this area that's already heavily congested. And so if there's an opportunity to address that with this driveway shift and, make 64th Street a right in, right out, so due to its close proximity to 63rd, I think that could be a really good thing to help address the safety at this intersection. I can kind of zoom in, see that a little bit better.
So just kind of continue from that to bring you here today. So after the site plan went through city council, we did ask the developer to reach out to 6410 University Avenue. I see I think the wrong address in there. I've got the next door to the west, 6412, but to 6410 University Avenue to see if they could acquire an easement on that property to shift the driveway further to the west. I also reached out to that property owner 6410 to see if there was interest now or in the future in selling the property to facilitate redevelopment there, as well as a shared access. I've had limited conversation with him, but the developer has at this point acquired an access easement on the front part of that property that would allow the Windsor driveway to be placed on 6410. So they're willing to do that. I think they're interested in that. They have expressed willingness to pay for the cost of that raised median at the city's request as well, if the city council wants to go in that direction. Otherwise, just as a reminder, right now the situation is the full access on both 64th and the Windsor would be aligned, and there's sort of a wait and see approach. If we're not seeing an increase in accidents or any concerns, that full access on both sides could stay for the foreseeable future. But then at the end of the 3-year time frame, there would be an evaluation point for city council to look at the intersection and say, we need to turn it into a right in, right out, or perhaps additional properties on University Avenue have been acquired at that point. A joint access further to the west could occur. So we have an option to move that Windsor access a little bit to the west here today, either with or without a raised median. I think ideally down the road, we'd still like to see that further west is my understanding, but we can at least make some progress here today, either with or without that raised median. Although if the median isn't raised, then you do have the offset intersections there, 64th and the Windsor driveway. That does create some conflict as well. So happy to answer any questions council might have. I'm sure Jen is as well.
So since I brought this up, I looked at the city's YouTube page in an attempt to watch the June 3rd council meeting, but it is not on the website, so I was not able to view it. I wanted to see what was said and to make sure that my notes on the subject match what was said at the council meeting. I have written that I asked about the right in, right out off 74th, and that I made sure that I knew that we were voting for full access for 3 years. There were accidents or issues that were brought to council. We could then move forward with making other decisions. I don't believe that anyone on 64th Street was aware of this right in, right out aspect of the Windsor. I believe in full transparency with not just the residents, but also council. The first that I learned about this change in plans was as an email on a Friday update. Thankfully, I read that update. This was not brought up to council prior to this change, nor were the residents that this new decision affected even allowed to bring up their concerns. Again, since I was not able to watch the council meeting in question, I was not able to see if that was exactly what was said. Since at the time of my vote, there was no way for the driveway to be moved, I approved the vote. I also didn't say anything to the residents because of the way that this was worded on the council agenda for the June 3rd meeting. So I just wanted full transparency to not just council, because I voted for one thing and then I read in an email that we're switching what was voted, in my opinion, which is not, in my idea, something good for me as far as a council member to vote on one thing and then when questioned about it, say, well, that's not what I voted on, but yeah, I don't know what to say on that. So that's one of my major concerns on that, is that the transparency to not just residents, but also to council. And then just as somebody who uses 64th Street, I don't use University very regularly just because of the congestion, but at certain times of the day, it's not bad. So you can make your turns. Do I do it at 4:30 in the afternoon as I'm heading east to make a left turn onto 64th Street? Probably not, unless I forget what time it was, which it takes me 20 minutes to get up to 63rd. So hopefully I'll figure it out and just kind of go around and do the 63rd aspect of things. But I don't think that the 64th Street residents should have the right in, right out. If there's some way that we can make it so, okay, maybe the Windsor can't make full access left, right turns, or only make a left turn during non-busy hours and hope that they actually read the signs and follow through with what the signs say. I'm not in favor of the right in, right out, because it reduces the access for not just our residents, but also the residents that use that to go down to Coles for school too. And I don't know if that was thought of as far as entrance exits, because as I sat there today waiting to get a parking spot in front of my house for 25 minutes, I was taking account of how many cars passed by. And there were a lot of them that passed all the way down to 64th and University and then turned left. So, we kind of split off into 3 different directions as people turn, but that's another thing to look at, that we do use that for school entrances and exits. So that's kind of my statements on this.
I don't know why the June 3rd council meeting isn't online.
There's like 2 different dates that weren't online.
Okay,
I don't know.
please find out and get it online. Someone? That's another issue, just
It might have.
see that it's
the
rectified,
recording might not
if
have been
possible.
working that night, I think.
We did have issues around that time with recordings. I will give
One
that.
meeting around that time that I don't think worked. I think maybe we still had audio of it, but I don't think we had the video of it, but we'll have to look.
Nate, because I would hear that.
Yeah.
That was my birthday.
I think that might have been the one, unfortunately.
It might have been.
That's a secondary issue. I think the first issue is, I think the this can maybe be kind of looked at in two parts, right? Because I think the first part can be, should the driveway be moved? But then, the second part can be, what should happen with the 64th Street? Because you can do either or, right? You don't have to do both. Is that fair? I don't really see any sort of benefit to leaving the access where it is. Anyone
we-
feel
Can
differently?
we move the access over? I mean, my thought was if we move the access over, we're still kind of gaining a little bit there. We're offsetting, but we're also not restricting 64th Street. And if that doesn't work, then if we're seeing the accidents, then of course, we're gonna have to go back and look at it, but at least we gave it the effort.
So I went out today and looked at it with Adam just because I needed to visually see where everything was and how, and so we did talk through some of those scenarios, and I definitely think there's value and benefit for moving. That was one of the things I asked too, is can we just do one or the other? And so I think there's value. Question for you, Jennifer, real quick. Do we know what like how many accidents have been there over what duration? I mean, is there any specific accident data you can give us? Other than there's a cluster?
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share. So again, from that, and there were 6 crashes that were reported in 2 years. 5 of them were rear end, 2 resulted in minor injury. So rear end was the predominant crash type that we were seeing within this cluster of crashes.
Can we look and see the times? Something that is from the sun as well, because it is, as you come, there's that sun glare that moving the intersection isn't going to help the sun unless you can move the sun for us. And if you can, I've got a whole nother list of things that I'd like you to take care of for me.
We do have, that data is available from the Iowa DOT crash data tool base, but I don't have those details right now, but that is something I think the only thing I would, if you do decide to offset those driveways, the main thing is that you have 100-foot distance, and SUDAS recommends, sorry, let me go back to my little table here. SUDAS recommends on a minor arterial that your minimum driveway spacing be 200 feet between driveways. So that's just something to think about. You will not have that minimum SUDAS distance for a minor arterial, which is University Avenue. So you do get that potential for those overlapping lefts. Somebody going to want to turn into the Windsor. At the same time, somebody's going to want to turn in to 64th Street. You have improved for people leaving the Windsor, right? That left turn has more distance to react. So that's a good thing. But you still kind of create this overlapping left turn situation, because this probably would have to stay striped very similar to what it is. So that way you could accommodate the lefts into the Windsor and the lefts into 64th Street. So that's just something to think about, is that's a potential, which Adam kind of talked about a little bit earlier.
So another question, Adam. So you said that the Windsor would pay for it if we make the change now. If we don't, then I'm assuming that'll be on us later.
I don't know that that's 100% the case. I just know that right now, there's an indication that they'll pay for it. And Justin, I don't know if you have any further insight on what we could require based off of what was approved for the site plan. We have some conditions on their full access today. And I'm sure they would like to retain a full access permanently. So there is, some cooperation needs to happen between the Windsor and the city to make sure we have a safe, full access for the Windsor. And, they may be amenable to the idea of assisting financially to make that happen. But
Okay.
Yeah, without anything in writing, but between that, the developers agreement, not sure. Hold them to pay for that.
And if you, okay, that's,
Or even at this time, if they said no, I'm not sure. and they fall back on. Developers that already died.
Yeah, I guess, my recommendation is we have a problematic intersection here. I mean, we're working with what we have. There's existing development here. If it was laid out today, it'd be situated differently, and we're just trying to do from a staff perspective what we can to make sure we have as safe an intersection as possible. So my suggestion is, at least by moving this access to the west today, it retains that flexibility going forward to extend that median, if council sees it fit at that point to do that. What additional risk is obtained by having that offset intersection? I'm not a traffic engineer to warrant that, but in my mind, I guess the Windsor is working towards what we were trying to achieve, I think, at the site plan, which is somehow move that access further west for a variety of reasons. So I appreciate their efforts to do that and obtaining that easement. And this looks like at least a slightly better solution than we have today as far as distance from 63rd Street, if we can shift that to the west, even if there is no raised median today.
So we could also move it and then put up signages that say can't turn during these hours and that sort of thing. Those are options too, right? For kind of a temporary.
Yeah, if
Or
you
not
drive down
even
University
temporary,
Avenue,
but-
there are other instances where there are signage that says no left-hand turn during certain hours. There's also, I think maybe it's 62nd Street off of Hickman. They're
Mhm.
blocked by a median.
Yeah.
So they can only do a right in, right out there. So this is a challenge that exists in many cities that are older and have seen redevelopment over time. If you go up to the newer suburbs, they look at the SUDAS requirements and you'll see very different intersections and spacing off of commercial developments in these areas. But, we have to work with what we have today.
So hear me out. Roundabout. Warren's no.
Thought that it's the annexing.
Kidding. I do think based on what we discussed back in June, that if we were to move or ask them to move to the west, that was the ideal state, but it wasn't it wasn't sure that they would actually be able to accomplish that, right? And that was the reason we went down the other parts of the conversation. So now that we know that they can do it, I think it would make sense to allow that to happen since that's the ideal state. But then we still spend some time studying what the actual follow-on to that is, whether or not we need to put a permanent median in, whether or not we want to ask to have a right in, right out for 64th, but do the west move, but everything else stays flexible, if you will, in terms of being able to address it. So I think Susan's right in terms of it's not what we told people we're going to do. It's not what we voted on. And so I think we're going to have to spend some time actually being thoughtful about that part that affects the folks on the north side of this project and people trying to get there.
I concur.
Well put.
Using your
Thank you.
words.
Oh, no, no. You
One
did
small
it
benefit as well is by moving this access to the west is there's an ash tree where the driveway access will go. So that tree will be removed. It was scheduled to be removed regardless. But there is an oak tree where the current access is, and that one can be retained. So we'll have a nice large tree that'll be staying in place.
There's a bonus.
Two of the accidents came in the twilight hours, perhaps. 4:30 in February and 5 o'clock in June. That's way too early. So
Well, the one that I saw, the person was on their cell phone, so
that doesn't sound right.
I mean, there was nothing that could have stopped that other than them not using their cell phone to text.
All right. So is the consensus then to move the access, but all things else remain the same?
Yes.
Yep. But happy to hear some solutions once it's all in place. So like what the next phase of at least monitoring or regulating can be.
Coming back on a yearly basis, is that but when's it gonna be done?
I was just asked that today too.
Their goal is to be open midsummer of next year, so July or before.
Won't be till 2020. 6, that, you know.
I hope it's a really hot day for the ribbon cutting.
I'm gonna walk there too.
From home.
With your jacket on.
With my jacket on. yeah.
Excellent.
I'm just impressed how easily you can take the jacket on and off
Mm.
and like it is very impressive.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Would you?
All right. 5B, consideration of a change order to wash, caulk, stain, and seal community event center patio.
Second.
AJ?
Yeah, so as we've been meeting with the contractor on a regular basis out there for the park renovations, notice the patio condition of the CEC, is starting to deteriorate. There's a lot of the caulk between the joints that, has come off or separated, and so you're getting water in between those cracks. The sealant on there is gone for the areas that get a lot of sunlight, which is most of it, even though there is a bit of an awning over some of it. The stain that sort of accents those leaves that are stamped in there, that's pretty much gone as well, so you really can't see those. So we have a competent contractor down there. I just asked him what the price would be to wash it, recaulk it, stain and seal it. Again, it's not an inexpensive project by any means, but since we're doing a lot of other concrete work out there, and we have an open project, and we do have an urban renewal plan that would allow for this to be included in there. My thought is let's go ahead and get this taken care of as part of that park project here today and help preserve that concrete and help bring it back up to a higher level finish that reflects a lot of the other concrete work that'll be out there. So we did reach out to some other firms. We did get one other quote from Miriam Construction. It was about $1,000 cheaper than having Caliber Concrete do the work. However, they were not confident that they could get that antiquing powder to look good out there. Andy did track down for us that original 2010 stain. He went through many of mouse bitten boxes to do so. So thank you, Andy.
Team player.
So we do have a second quote there. Andy and I both reached out to various other contractors as well and didn't get any response. So we just have those two quotes. But we're pretty confident that Caliber Concrete's quote is a reasonable one and that they would do a good job in that. So our staff recommendation is to go ahead and move forward with having them do that work after Fall Festival.
And where are we taking this money from? Is it, I realize it's not budgeted, so.
That money would be paid for as part of the park project, which this portion would be probably funded out of urban renewal funds, TIF funds.
Questions, discussion?
Let's get it done.
Read.
All right. Roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
5C, consideration of resolution number 2024-55, a resolution approving deer management zone and establishing dates for the special bow hunt.
Second.
AJ?
This spring, we received a couple of notes from residents that there's a lot of deer in the northwest part of town.
There are.
I have also witnessed a lot of deer in the northwest part of
We
town.
have the herd that's at my house. Okay.
And so they're just asking if there's anything we can do to help, lessen that problem a little bit. Going back through some older city council minutes, it looks like we used to have an urban bow hunt that hasn't taken place for a few years. We had a police officer, I believe, that went through all the training, and he was permitted by a property owner, Laura Bellum, to hunt on her property. And that, so as far as I can tell, is the only property that there's ever been bow hunting on. We have restrictions in our ordinances, which I attached there, that say how far you need to be off of the trail and away from city streets and other houses, at least without a permit from that adjacent homeowner to do bow hunting. And so we Lieutenant Norris reached out to Laura, asked if she'd be willing to host a deer hunter again this year. She indicated yes. And Norris has spoken to some other staff and other trained hunters that might be interested in that. They are going through the certification requirements needed to become a bow hunter in the urban area. So what we have for you today is a resolution that would authorize an urban bow hunt for the maximum time frame allowed by the DNR, which is September 21st through January 19th of 2025, subject to having all the necessary permits from the city and from the state. that would take place exclusively on 1705 Plaza Circle. That's not to say you couldn't authorize bow hunting on other properties as well. Again, just historically, that's the only property that we've allowed it on. And that's a property owner that's been willing. She has a large piece of property in Windsor Heights and then some adjoining property that's wooded as well in Clive. So that's kind of a good place to do it, all things considered. But that's what we're proposing here is opening up that deer hunt area on this property specifically. And, I guess if there's other applicants, we could look at those, or after we have a little bit of experience of renewed experience here again, we could look at expanding that. There are some public properties that you could potentially do it on, but again, a lot of those have terrain issues or they're adjacent to a trail. So that's what we have for you to consider today. Happy to answer any questions.
Remind me, I don't know if you found in that information, how many we allowed or how many did they?
I don't think we set the
Yeah.
number of antlers that are got by that. So I think that's restricted by the DNR.
Okay.
Regulation.
Okay, Mr. Hunter.
So can I ask these, so I was looking at the maps, just trying to figure out, there's a lot of, we know I'm not good with feet and inches, so I'm gonna just ask the question. So the blue here, all of this, that is possible real estate for bow hunting if they requested, is that kind of what I was, because there's the 100-foot trail buffer, which I read about, and then so
I
these,
believe some of that area in blue is within 100 feet of a trail and within.
well, yes, there's like this here, but I'm more talking like here, because this would be the 100 feet within the trail, right? Sorry. So this would be the 100 feet
Yeah, I
within the
think I
trail.
believe you're right.
So then like these here,
So things in the west bank of the creek.
yeah. So that would be allowed if, but they would have to come and ask, kind of like the other property owner.
I believe you could probably have another resolution and approve additional properties. That's a historical map.
Oh, okay.
This is again, the only thing that we're proposing here today is this green area on Laura's property. But historically, I think that was available for somebody to apply. I don't know if just nobody ever applied or we didn't permit them in the past. And with that uncertainty, I just looked at doing it this one property this year just to try to do something. As time's getting short here, it's, almost bow season. But yeah, again, I don't have the full picture of what happened in the past.
I just wanted to know, just because that was here and it's
Yeah.
in the packet, so I was
tried
trying to
confuse
figure
that.
out,
Maybe it would refresh somebody else's memory of what happened in the past too,
Mhm.
but
didn't refresh my memory. I mean,
It did a little bit.
so I just wanted to make sure that I understood what,
if you
I was
figure it out,
reading.
you can let me know, but I believe you're correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, basically allow people to hunt on their own property and whoever gave them permission they wanted, but I don't know how many people took advantage of it.
I think we only allowed that one property last time, and I think we only had like one or two people who,
I believe you only approved
we
one
only
city
approved one?
employee to do it.
Okay.
That was a police officer, so
okay,
trained
that
in
sounds-
firearms.
all right. I
And we
just-
don't have a designated hunter for this property yet. Laura hasn't gone through the paperwork and Hunter hasn't gone through all that, but that administratively would be approved, presuming that you allow the bow hunt here thereafter if they get through that process.
do we have fees that are associated with this then?
We don't have anything in our fee schedule that I've seen. There is some paperwork they have to fill out. I think they have to pay fees for the classes with the DNR and maybe for their license as well, but I don't believe there's any payment made to the city of Windsor Heights.
Okay.
You could certainly set an annual fee next time around if we'd like. But
Well, I believe the last time we talked about it, it was with the purpose of them doing a service to us by helping
Right.
to winnow the population. So we didn't really think of it as a revenue generator as much as a safety.
I was just thinking about time, staff time and
Oh.
all of that. That's the only thing I was thinking of.
So I-
And I
I-
didn't know if it was scheduled and I just hadn't read it somewhere.
So I've had two residents ask about this as well, just as early as last week. And one has a relative who's a qualified bow hunter and marksman who may be a person that we could ask. So if this goes through, we can talk.
Did have a question from Danielle. She's asking how would this be communicated to residents? What's going on and who could be included and what is done with the deer?
I think per our ordinance, the deer is required to be utilized by the hunter, can't be sold, or it can be donated to charity. That's how our ordinance is drafted. How it can be communicated to residents, this would be solely on private property, so it shouldn't have much of an impact other than, there probably need to be some communication with some adjacent properties there. The amount of property there within the green that could actually be hunted without signing off of the adjacent neighbors is really just that south eastmost portion of the green. Because you're within, I think, is it 200 feet, I think maybe of houses adjacent to it. So they'd either need a waiver from those adjoining houses or they'd have a very small space. But since it is solely on private property, there shouldn't, be any impact to trail users or other residents of Windsor Heights.
Danielle, if you want to unmute yourself and ask that second question, you can go ahead.
Hello, I apologize. I probably could have done a little bit more research ahead of time as I'm seeing some of the materials, but how could, at the risk of sounding like I don't like all the cute little deers running around, how could someone opt in, and would there be enough time for folks to work through what I imagine would be a fairly robust process working with other neighbors to be able to meet the criteria as you've outlined to be included?
Like the office. Okay.
Well. I guess, what's your address?
Mine's on Bel Air Avenue. And I mean, I'm just asking because I've been in, walk through the neighborhood, love our neighborhood. And, they are, as you guys know, they are a subject of a lot of dismay and appreciation. But I'm not a deer counter. It feels like the deer population is either growing or getting braver. And I just wondered what collaborative opportunity there was if there were, people in other groups of property besides the one that you mentioned, like I'm wondering, is there a process to outline that, number one? And number two, is there the ability to move on that yet this year
Well,
for additional areas?
when does boat season start? It starts. Okay,
Next week
yeah,
It goes through January.
and sharpening the things.
yeah.
I guess, I just based off of my past readings, it seems like the council at that time was very conservative.
Always bow ties and cowboy boots.
Yeah.
But if you direct staff, we can certainly look at additional properties, but there'll probably start being more impacted residents or trail users if we expand this, just because Ms. Belinda's
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, and then my last question just is, I'm usually a data person. Do we have like deer counts in our area for like current counts versus prior years? Even if they're only like samples that are done occasionally, do we have data that talks about the quantity of deer?
I'm sure the DNR, if they respond to emails, could potentially provide us with that information. So I think we can check into that. But as far as tonight goes, council passed, the resolution as far as the bow hunt area being pretty much the entire Walnut Creek area, right? So you can do this, and then if you want to consider the further area, that there's nothing prohibiting that, right? I think that's in the realm of possibility.
I believe you could.
Okay.
approve it this year.
bring it back, yeah?
Yeah. So I think that's something that going to consider as well.
Hey, that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion from council?
When I was on 79th Street yesterday mowing, there were 8 deer in 2
Send
yards.
them back home to my front yard.
So, I did talk to your husband about that.
Putting them in the back.
I said, why are they back this way? They need to be that way.
Mhm.
Getting arrogant at this point.
I think so. They didn't even move when I mowed.
I tried to send them down to Mike's house, but. listen.
They've already eaten all his hostas.
They've eaten all my
Yeah.
hot. I drink out of my water fountain too, so that's really. Okay,
Stop leaving water out for the deer. We are not allowed to legally feed them,
Alright,
so.
Okay.
I feel like my apples.
That's true. Have a desert for a front yard. All right, if nothing else, roll call on this.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
And then check on deer count, and then if you want to consider the bigger ordinance, certainly do that. All right, 6D, consideration of resolution 2024-56, resolution terminating the Metro Home Improvement Program 28E agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
AJ.
So there's really two action items here that kind of go together. Last budget season, council indicated they'd like staff to take a look at the participation rates and the value of the Metro Home Improvement Program. Adam Strait did some research into some alternative programs out there. And then about that time, Metro or West Des Moines indicated that they were interested in stopping providing the administration for this, and MIPA expressed an interest in taking that over. I'd also approached West Des Moines about increasing the assessed value, the maximum assessed value by $100,000 for participant houses, because that seemed to be a constraining part for Windsor Heights applicants, given our small pool of housing relative to some of our urban neighbors that participate in this program. So they did vote to increase that maximum assessed value a couple of weeks ago, and also did move forward with expressing interest in having MIPA administrate this program going forward. They have experience in administrating other housing trust funds and other housing home improvement programs. So they seem to be a good fit to administrate this. And then we also, at the time of budgeting last year, did not have, I believe, anybody that had applied yet. We now have a full roster of homes for this year's program financing, as well as a waiting list for next year started. I believe there's 3 houses on it right now on the waiting list. So the circumstances have sort of changed as far as who's administrating the program, the main constraint, which is that assessed value maximum, and also who our administrator would be. So staff recommendation is go ahead and approve the termination of this 2080 agreement with the city of West Des Moines. And the next action item here is the approval of a new 28E for MIPA to administrate this program with that new higher assessed value maximum. And then we can reevaluate going forward based off of what information we receive. And then, I think also at the time of budgeting last year, it was a little unclear how this was all financed. So we just got a little bit clarifying information in there as far as historical amounts contributed by the city of Windsor Heights, as well as the amount contributed by the Polk County Housing Trust Fund. So there is a pretty substantial biannual contribution that this group does receive that helps fund these improvements. So with that in mind, we're getting a better bang for the buck than I think what we may have been initially thinking based off of how much money we put into it. So hopefully that addresses a lot of the questions the council had at that time.
So I don't know if I'm gonna ask this at the right time. I don't know if it's because we're terminating, but then we're going to the next one, right? But then is this all put together? I just want to know, like, on this page, the numbers. So it shows the addresses of everybody. Is there a certain year? Like, do we start? I wasn't exactly sure how to figure out the years. Just so we see, like, the first one would be $46,000 is what they handed out. And we basically paid, I guess I don't really know what we paid. 23,000 maybe? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to read the amount of money that that our homeowners have had given to them, basically, and then.
I think it says it's since 2000.
We joined in, says on that first page that, well, we were one of the initial.
Since 2000.
We've invested 157 and then 363,000. I was just trying to figure out, like, if it went years or, how I was reading this graph that was in here.
There's no years listed on it that I see. But yeah, I think it's just in chronological order of each year's participants.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure too.
Was not aware that we had received that much money. Our residents had received that much money from the group, just because in my 2 years of being on it, maybe even 3, I don't know. I'd never once attended a meeting. So I had no idea what was going on, I mean, it was just, I was on that committee and it was in name only because never even
Or just
received
write
email.
checks.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean. They don't need approval. True. So it's good to know that we're at least getting more out of it than what I thought we were.
All right. Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
5E, consideration of resolution 2024-57, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a 28E agreement for the aforementioned Mid-Iowa Housing Program with MIPA.
Second. We'll save you on that.
Thank you. A lot of cities in there. Anything else, AJ?
Nothing else.
Any further discussion or questions?
Nope.
Hearing none, roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
5F, consideration of resolution 2024-59, a resolution authorizing city administration to negotiate an agreement with Walnut Creek Watershed Authority.
So moved.
Second. Yes, please.
AJ.
So this is a concept of a plan I have that came out of some of the most recent master planning done by the Walnut Creek Watershed. Sorry.
About the concept.
I get it.
So the city previously contracted with GAO to complete a flood reduction and resiliency plan. It looks like in retrospect, a lot of the actions that are recommended out of that were difficult for the city to independently achieve. But there was some conversation that following that among the Walnut Creek watershed about trying to do some regional detention. Nothing really came of that at the time. The 2016 Walnut Creek Watershed Master Plan identifies some projects, but it's been a little unclear to me on how many that have been acted on since the inception of that plan. We're now at a point where we're updating that master plan with a 5-year action plan. And it is my hope that we have some very specific regional projects that are identified on there with specified funding sources and timelines to achieve those. To kind of push the envelope potentially on getting some of that solidified and more set in concrete. And particularly since we are at kind of the basin of Walnut Creek watershed and fully built out with very limited opportunities to do large scale detention. The one exception kind of in the works right now is the Windsor and the ability to maybe expand on that one over time. The mayor and I have also looked at some other concepts on the north part of town that Bolton and Mink took a look at, but kind of proved challenging. It seems like our best bang for the buck is really to look at investing in regional watershed detention storage upstream. Clive has some plans in the work right now out through an RFI to maybe do some detention and some other programming in that area. But we've recently raised our stormwater fee. So we have some dollars to dedicate towards stormwater projects, potentially including regional detention as well. And my hope is as we're going through this 5-year action plan, if the city of Windsor Heights sort of steps up and provides some funding for regional projects, maybe some other cities in the watershed might also join suit. And then we'd have a stable funding source to apply for state and federal grants for these larger scale projects. So, whether 5% is the appropriate amount for that, I'm not certain. But since the timing seems right, given where we're at in discussions with that action plan, it felt like if council wants to give me some authority to have some further conversations and bring back kind of a funding plan for Windsor Heights to contribute to the watershed authority, of which they said they are set up to receive funds like this to do and administrate projects and funding for those projects. Now would be a good time to consider that. So that's sort of where this is coming from. That'd be my recommendation as we look at doing something like this, kind of stepping out in front and maybe inspiring some other communities to follow suit now or in the future.
Okay. Questions for AJ? Discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
5G, consideration of the third reading of ordinance number 2024-06, an ordinance amending chapter 156.
Move to approve.
Second.
AJ,
No changes or public feedback on this one.
discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
Yes.
Teresa Harms.
Yes.
5H, consideration of the first reading of ordinance number 2024-07, ordinance amending chapter 175.
Move to approve.
Second.
AJ.
I'm gonna hand this one off to Trey here in just a second, just a quick bit of context. Started with the conversation we had about temporary signage. And then about that time, we noticed that maybe there's some areas for improvements for strip centers on permanent signage as well. And then kind of while those conversations were going on, we received an application for some additional permanent signage on a commercial building in town here that wouldn't be allowed under our current ordinance, but potentially would be on the changes that we're looking at. So we've had a lot of conversation over the last several days, even on trying to fine tune this language to bring it in front of you. And it is sort of dense material here. But we didn't want to pull it from the agenda tonight, just knowing that there is somebody waiting in the wings to potentially utilize this bit of code. So bear with us a little bit, I think, as we try to talk through this and explain it. And you may see some tweaks to this over the next reading as well. But Trey, if you want to go ahead and try to walk through it.
Yeah, absolutely. We can, Adam, I'll just have you go down to the table and I'll kind of describe. AJ described it very well. With the permanent signage code, specifically on commercial properties within the CC district and UC district, it seems a bit restrictive, especially when we're looking at any building that has multiple businesses in it. The main issue, and you can see on these two tables right here, we have a maximum total square feet per zoning district, and that is based upon like the lot or parcel. And then we go further to seeing what maximum size the sign is for detached and attached signs. Now, when we're basing this off of lot and parcel, if there are multiple businesses that are on that lot or parcel, that means that they are all utilizing that 150 square feet. So if one sign permit is put in for one business, they utilize 90 of it, and a second one utilizes the rest. The rest of the businesses aren't allowed signage based upon their lot already utilizing all of its 150 square feet. So what we're trying to solve is for the CC and UC district, which has businesses like that on a single lot, is to go based upon building frontage instead of the actual lot. So moving to the next, and it's a pretty large change, but I'll go through every single part. So for maximum total square feet, we've actually removed that entirely, and that's because it'll be regulated over here for the actual maximum size that they're allowed. So when looking at number permitted signs for each one of the buildings on a lot, we'll go by building frontage. So it's 1 per 250 linear feet of that building frontage on that primary road that they're facing, with a minimum of 1. And so obviously with larger buildings, they'll be allowed to have more than one permitted sign, permanent sign detached. Then with the maximum size, how we're defining this is the lesser of 90 square feet or 1 square foot per linear foot of building frontage. So what that allows is if you have 50 feet of linear building frontage to the primary street, then you're allowed a maximum of 50 square feet for your detached sign. That would be the lesser of 90 square feet, 50 square feet. If you have more than that, then your maximum would still be what was previously the maximum of 90 square feet. And then similar ratio for attached signs, but having no actual maximum, just allowing 1 linear foot to equal 1 square foot for the maximum. We also have other restraints within the sign permit, taking up a certain amount of the building facade. So that also limits it. So what we're really trying to do is just make sure that all the businesses on a singular lot in a similar building are allowed to have some form of signage and aren't overly restricted by how the current code is. And that was the issue that was brought up to us. So that's the changes to the table. I also, if you go one more, there are 3 text changes as well. And the first is just showing where allowable sign areas are determined by buildings frontage. The allowable sign area shall not be transferable to other buildings. So if there's signage space that you do not use for your business, you can't transfer it to another business to utilize. Just making sure that people aren't conglomerating a incredibly large sign. Then also for detached signs are subject to the following general regulations. So where the maximum number of detached signs and size is determined by building frontage. And if the parcel or building fronts on multiple streets, the allowable detached signs shall not be transferable across building frontages. So utilizing only one building frontage. And then we also go to the last one, which is simply defining what we see as building frontage. So those are the high level changes that we're making to fix that issue of making sure that businesses are allowed to have detached and attached signage when they are on a lot and building that's connected to other businesses.
So can I ask, so let's use 66th and University with the one that like the nail salon, mojitos, that area there.
Multi-sign?
Yeah, the multi-sign. So are we describing that multi-sign where, like it lists out the names, or are we talking like signage like mojitos? They have a sign, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like how are they still having both or what?
They could still have both because we don't have a maximum amount of signage for attached signs. You're allowed to based upon if you go back to the table, you're allowed to just based upon linear square footage. You're allowed to have an attached sign. Then you can also have a detached sign. So if a strip mall wanted to have a large sign, they could still utilize all that space and have the signage broken down in the same way. It would just simply be the actual building owner getting one singular sign permit instead of every single business getting one.
Okay.
So I think this was an issue that came up with St. Vincent de Paul's because the Wild Birds Unlimited sign that's on the roof was actually like took up all of the limit for the available signage. And so Board of Adjustments, so they brought it to the Board of Adjustments. So if that had been under this code, would it have met the requirements, or would they still have needed to go to the Board of Adjustments? Just
That would have met these requirements. So that business would have been able to get a sign permit for their signage.
perfect. Thank you.
So that's kind of what we're trying to help.
That's the problem we're trying to fix.
Is our code unusual then?
I will say for a lot of commercial districts, they do go based upon building frontage. The ones that I worked in, and when I did background, it was a lot of them that utilize this in a commercial space just for those strip mall kind of areas.
Further discussion or questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Susan Series?
Yes.
Joseph Jones?
Yes.
Michael Libby?
Yes.
Laura Campbell?
Yes.
Teresa Harms?
Yes.
5I, consideration of the first reading of ordinance number 2024-08, also related to signs.
Vote to approve. Second.
AJ?
At August 19th council, we talked about temporary sign issues that have cropped up over the last decade or so, and some conflicting language we had in 153 and 175. I understood there was some interest in reducing some of the regulatory burden there for a limited amount of signage for businesses, and then also consolidating that language under one chapter. So that's what we're bringing before you this evening. We'd consolidate all the temporary sign requirements into 175. Businesses would be allowed without a permit on their private property some temporary signage based off of their amount of interior square footage that they either own or exclusively lease. And then if they wanted to go above and beyond that amount of signage, which is one sign for the first 1,000 square feet, and then an additional sign for every additional 3,000 square feet, up to a maximum of 5 signs, they could apply for a temporary sign permit which are valid for 60 days, for a maximum amount of 10 signs, which would, be for like a grand opening of a business or a closing sale or something like that, just to do a little bit of splash, but limit the time frame in which they can do that. Still no signs would be allowed in the right of way, unless it's a city oriented sign. And we would still maintain some eyes on visibility constraints that any temporary signage might create. So just a couple of quick examples for you. The scooters building there on Hickman is 600 square feet. So because they are so small, they would still not be allowed an exempted temporary sign. They could apply for a temporary sign permit and have temporary signs for a short duration of time, 60 days or less. Flowerama is about 1,300 square feet, so they would be allowed one exempt temporary sign. Ivy is 68,000 square feet, so they would be able to do the maximum 5 exempted signs, and you will often see 4 to 8 temporary signs on their property. There's some out there right now. So it's sort of in line with what the current practice is, I would say. And then strip centers in generally, you see their square footage, 8,000 square feet. So they would be allowed 1 or 2 or 3 potential temporary signs on their private property. So that's the proposal for you. Happy to take any feedback. The numbers on here, I think you could argue to increase them a little bit or decrease them a little bit, but I think we tried to reach a happy medium on them.
So on a regular basis, how many signs could scooters put up, saying that they're having the buy one, get one free special?
They could apply for a temporary sign permit for the maximum of 10. And if they can position them in a way that isn't obstructing views and it's for, a limited sort of certain event, they could potentially have 10 signs for that 60-day period.
And how much would that cost for them to do that?
We don't currently have anything in our annual fee schedule, so we'll need to set an amount next time we approve an annual fee schedule for temporary signs. I think we do have a sign permit right now. It's a very convoluted formula for how we charge. It's based off of square footage of that sign. It seems unnecessary.
Yes.
So I think I would like to just set next time we update our annual fee schedule, a fixed fee that commiserates with the amount of time to process that and to take a look at those signs once they're out there. So, $30, $40, something like that, I'd say.
What do other cities do? Because I personally like to see the signs, because if I see scooters as having and I'm just using that because it's easy to pick on them. But if they're having a buy one, get one free, which is funny because I don't even drink coffee. But if they have like a buy one, get one free sale on Friday the 13th, they're only going to have it up there for a week. But it's nice to have the business have that, because we're bringing in business to our community. So I kind of am a little bit torn on whether or not, do we need to have a temporary permit for them to do like 10 days worth of it being out there as a sign? I mean, I understand if you're putting it up continuously, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like, what do other cities? Is this something that aligns with what Clive and Urbandale do and charge? And well, I guess we don't charge anything right now, so.
Well,
I mean, we do.
We do, but this comes to the actual logistical challenge of temporary signs. Temporary signs aren't generally temporary in nature. They tend to be up until they blow down, or if they're in the right of way, I take them down. But there's a lot of different ordinances that I've seen out there in cities, and maybe Trey could comment as well, but the practicality of it is most cities, unless you have an egregious amount of signs or they're becoming problematic, they are addressing them on a complaint basis. So what their ordinance says and what's happening in practice, much like what's going on now, there's temporary signs all over the place. Nobody's getting permits for those. It's burdensome to enforce, which is why I like the idea of having exempt signs to a reasonable degree, whether it's 300 for the first 300 feet or the first 1,000 feet. And then, if they are going to go put out a bunch of signs, okay, we'll make them go through that process of filling out a permit and make sure, then we'll have a limited number that are having a lot of those signs, and we can take the time to actually enforce whether they're staying up in perpetuity or 60 days or whatnot. So Trey, I don't know if you can offer up perspective from other communities, but that's what I've seen.
Yeah, I agree with AJ. When it comes to temporary signs, it's a very difficult issue to be able to handle. I know communities, when there does become a problem, they have a temporary sign ordinance that we're trying to create here. And when it's not a problem, usually it's just going on a nuisance, or like if it's in the right of way, removing it then. Otherwise, most cities don't necessarily have a temporary sign ordinance, other than going through a permit process to get one up for 60 days for new developments or open businesses, things like that. Otherwise, they kind of just deal with them as a case-to-case basis and if they become problems. So I think what's been developed so far is, although tough in a manner, especially with, thinking of scooters, a very small footprint, and then having to go through that kind of permitting process for something like a buy one, get one or sale of some kind. But necessary, and I think in the grand scheme of things, just because when people are putting up temporary signs, it could become a huge problem very, very quickly. So I think we kind of tried to balance it as much as we could when talking about numbers, when talking about kind of the process itself. But I don't have anything more to add upon that from other city perspectives, I guess.
So as a business owner, I will tell you, temporary signs can serve a lot of purpose for what you do, whether it's a temporary sale, grand opening, whatever the case may be. We have recently moved our store to Urbandale, and they're very stringent. And you can't, literally can't put anything outside of an A-frame sign on anyway. So it's, I'm glad to see that these did not go that far, because I think that they're very, they're not business friendly. I actually would suggest that we allow businesses, under the 1,000-foot or whatever, to be able to have at least one sign. I think that would be more of a business friendly opportunity to exclude them just because they have a smaller footprint. So I would like to see that change if that's something that everybody else would be amenable to. Otherwise, obviously, we don't want it to be a nuisance, but in the same token, it's as a customer, I like to be able, it catches my eye. So there's value there. But there are also, I don't want it to be problematic, but in the same token, it's a tool for business, and I would prefer we're a business friendly community.
I would agree. I think allowing at least one sign for businesses under 1,000 square foot. I think where I see those signs the most, the temporary signs for business, are at Sherwood Forest, and, recognizing that Hickman's a state highway and people are, I'm sure, going exactly the speed limit and not over at all. And the ability for people to spot where they need to turn in for the business is valuable, and to be able to see those signs. So I'd prefer us to deal with the nuisance ones as complaints come in.
The easiest change to this might just be reducing the first 1,000 square feet to down like 500 or something. I mean, it'd be nice if they still had a requirement to have some physical presence there, just so that we had some regulatory piece there. I mean, like a ghost kitchen or something like that. I mean, theoretically, you could just start throwing out signs saying, well, I'm a business here because I have a mailbox. Well,
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I don't care what the number is necessarily, if it's 1,000, but if it's 500, I think Scooters is probably about the smallest business in town. That's more than maybe an office space and one of our, or the co-working space, for example. I guess they would still be precluded from that. But some sort of a square footage requirement would be my suggestion, whatever number that is.
Could we do like 250 square feet? Because I'm just thinking what will go in at Hickman, that piece between the car wash, they say they like small businesses. Well, I don't want to, if they only have the 500 square feet, I don't know what some of these new places that I don't really go to, but I don't know what their footprint looks like.
I have no opposition to 250 if that's what you want.
That at least helps us so that a ghost kitchen that pops up or just has a PO box or something can't have the benefits.
All right, who made the motion?
Teresa Arms.
Made the second?
Susan.
Are we in agreement with?
Lauren is the first, but I don't know. You heard her wrong.
What does the clerk have?
She doesn't. she
I don't
doesn't make
motion or
motions.
second. There's no need for that. There's plenty of other people who do that here,
Is everyone?
but I'm always like,
Are we in agreement?
everyone in it?
Just to clarify on the cost for that, then we're gonna put this into play, but we're not gonna have a cost for them until the next time that we do a fee schedule.
I wouldn't anticipate we're gonna get a lot of temporary sign.
You
permit
say
requests
that.
Beyond that, yeah, and there's way more basal barking requests than I expected, but I'm not too worried about a little bit of staff time to approve nominal number. We can bring the ordinance if you want, but
That'll also, help us figure out how much time it does take to review those and to be able to get that cost too, so.
Yeah, and with how much time it takes for it to actually go into effect, if it passes each of the next 3 meetings, then 10 days
Right.
after that, you're looking at early November, mid-November for it to be in fact when it's kind of that winter time when there's not a ton of.
Till everybody needs snow plows.
All right, so the motion amended?
Yes.
Please.
All right, any further discussion?
I had one other thought, but it has escaped me. Shoot.
there shall be a second reading.
Yes, there shall. Communication to the businesses. The critical component to this is making sure that they know. And so I know we had a business businesses communication, but I want to make sure that they understand and know that this is what the expectations. This is obviously after all the readings are done, but
Maybe we can have the chamber help us.
chamber can help us. Yep.
All right, anything else? Hearing none, roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.
Joseph Jones.
Yes.
Michael Libby.
Yes.
Lauren Campbell.
yes.
Teresa Hunt.
Yes.
All right, item 6. Reports. My report is included in the agenda. I won't call on you, Mr. Libby.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
I think back to the meeting we had to discuss the approval of the Casey site plan. I don't know if my thoughts on that were either explicit or implicit, but I had thoughts on it. And it was a very full meeting, and there was, I think it was a controversial topic. And I think everyone at this dais here had something to say about it and discussed the motion at hand and discussed the issue. And I think everyone here talked about why they were making the decision they were making. And so I think when there are controversial issues in this community, I appreciate the leadership all of you show by actually talking about those things and justifying the decisions you make. So recently I was at a meeting where such a thing did not happen. So I just wanted to give you all credit for the work that all of you do. So, Ms. Harms.
You are welcome. I'm always happy to talk. Sometimes it even gets me in trouble. Anyways, MAC tomorrow morning, and then, right? Yeah, tomorrow's the 17th, right? Okay, this month is just flown by already. I'm gonna attend Metro Waste on Wednesday, because I am not able to go to the League of Cities. And otherwise, Windsor Wonderland is well underway, and we are in the process. If you know anybody who's interested in being a caroler or any group, we're reaching out to the churches and the schools again. And then we are working with Nikki Michaels on a Windsor Heights ornament to be available at fall festival for viewing and potentially ordering options. So more to come on that. I'm super excited about it. Otherwise, we have all of our main themes or main attractions reserved and in play. So more to come, and then we're gonna pass out some flyers at Fall Festival too, just, telling people to mark their calendars. That's all I got.
Campbell.
Fall Festival Parade sign up still open. WAM registration is still open, but today is the last day to guarantee a shirt for WAM registrants. And yard signs will be going out soon. Obviously, I will follow the code. Volunteers are still needed for Windsor Heights Fall Festival. You can sign up at windsorheightsfallfestival.com. And speaking of flyers, we'll be handing out, there it is right there. We'll be handing out flyers at Hy-Vee the next 2 weekends. Thank you to our friends at the police department and fire department for also coming by and helping, because people are more likely to stop and chat with them than they are Susan and I. Bravo meets on Wednesday. Last week I spoke as the DART alternate commissioner at the Pleasant Hill City Council meeting. And I want to call attention to how proud I am to serve on our council here in Windsor Heights. And I'm grateful for our city's support of public transit in our metro, and even more grateful for the thoughtful dialogue we have at the dais when facing tough decisions. So, and echoing Mike's sentiments. Last month, I went with the American Council of Youth Political Leaders to North Macedonia as part of a bipartisan delegation. North Macedonia is just north of Greece, for everyone who, like me, needed to look it up on a map. So I brought back flags from North Macedonia as gifts for everybody. And I also brought some rakia, which is some fruit brandy. If anybody would like to stay after the meeting to sample, you're welcome to. Part of the ACYPL exchanges includes gift exchanges. Was the meeting that bad tonight? It's not even time for your review. I gave art prints of our University Avenue redesign, if you want to hold up one of those here. I maybe took some liberties and took some of the artwork from that Bolton Mink created, and I added in our banners that we actually went with. And I gave those and a smaller version of the banner and our city flag. And our delegation received a really nice seal from the city of Tetovo, which is home to the Painted Mosque, which was renovated with funds from the U.S. State Department. And since I was the only one there that's part of a city council, the delegation gifted this to me. And so I want to bring that to give to Windsor Heights so we can put it up in that display case up at City Hall maybe. But it was a really neat experience. I brought some stuff if anybody wants to look at some of the travel books and art I brought home, but it was an outstanding experience. So that's it.
Jones? So Lauren represented us really well at the Pleasant Hill City Council meeting. You obviously saw the results of that conversation, and they've chosen to now submit their notice that they are leaving DART. We met as a commission 2 weeks ago. For phase 1 of the OMM facility is up and going. There has been a 4% increase in ridership for DART year over year, which is really quite nice. And then in a couple weeks, they're going to announce the van donation program and what that's going to look like. We have Reimagined DART tomorrow. This is what we've been going through. This will be our second conversation where we all get together and talk about the things we're looking to get out of public transit. And I'll bring your attention to, if you didn't see the email from Amanda from last month, August 26th, she sent the entire DART community survey results. So you can see what all the other cities listed and how we all view certain things. So I'm really happy that we answered really highly on our support for public transit. And so it vindicated me amongst the other commissioners to say, hey, I was telling the truth when I said we're all really all into this. But also it kind of shows that we have 3 complete different sets of ways that we are approaching this as a commission. So I think that'll be really telling as we continue these conversations over the next couple of weeks. So that's what I got.
Ms. Scaries?
So as Lauren said, we are in full fall festival mode. So I apologize if I don't return emails to anything that is not Fall Festival related until after Fall Festival. As Lauren said, we really need volunteers for Friday and Saturday. We'll be showing Hocus Pocus, the movie, starting at 6:45, which means we'll be handing out the food goodies starting at 6:15. Currently, we have 4 volunteers that have signed up to help with the movie. We'll also have silent disco going at the same time, and we have 2 volunteers that signed up for this event because they had such a blast last year. So that's always good to hear that our volunteers are coming back because of how much fun they had. So then Cumulus Radio is once again helping to promote the Fall Festival, and you'll start hearing the commercials about the movie in the park and the Fall Festival here soon, if haven't already. The 25th, we go on We Are Iowa, right? Starting at 11 o'clock-ish until 11:45. We've got like a 3-4 minute time frame in there. We'll be taking Ember and Brian Jones from the Firefighters Association with us. He so nicely volunteered to attend the event with us. Then the next 2 weekends, as Lauren said, we'll be out at Hy-Vee from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We still have times available for shifts, and I hope that everyone signs up and is willing to help out. I'll send out an updated list either tonight or tomorrow so that everybody can have that down on their schedule. Shout out to Nate and his wife Janelle for being the first to volunteer for our Hy-Vee handouts. I do want to make sure to bring up that we need to have more volunteers from the community as well as the business community to make these type of events a success. If we don't receive more commitment for volunteers, we will need to look at if these events can continue to occur, as this takes a lot of time to plan on both Lauren and my part. So we definitely need some more buy-in from our community and business community to kind of make these and continue these to be a success. So tomorrow I'll be attending the Connector Luncheon, and I will be promoting or strong arming, however you want to think about it, the volunteer sign up. So hopefully we'll get some connectors from the chamber to sign up to volunteer. Wednesday through Friday, I'll be at the League of Cities event. Teresa will be attending my Metro Waste Committee meeting for me. Thank you. Then on September 30th, I have down that I have a Catch Des Moines meeting. I need to go back through and make sure that that's correct because I'm a little confused on when that is. And then kind of moving back in time, we had a large audience for the movie Trolls. Thank you for all of our volunteers, staff, and fire, police, mayor, Adam, Lauren, everybody else that came out to help. I counted 352 people. With all the kids moving around, I might have counted a few people twice or a few people never, but you know, I was impressed with how many attendees stayed until the end of the movie. It kind of got a little cool, but you know. And then lastly, if anyone wants to purchase a Wham shirt tonight without signing up for the race, let Lauren and I know, as we'll be placing that order tonight. I'm guessing it'll be about $15 without, you know, we'll kind of eat the cost, but I think that's a roundabout number. So if you're wanting one, make sure you let us know ahead of time so we can add you into the order. That's it.
AJ? Just 2 brief things. Colby Park's looking really great. We haven't been down there lately. Landscaping plants are going in right now. And the playground equipment and everything else is really coming together nicely. A suggestion was put forth a number of weeks back about maybe looking for an opportunity within the park to do some sort of recognition for a donor, former council members, former mayors, or other folks in the community. We've been looking at sort of options for that. We don't really have an easy amenity in there that you could put a placard on because we're not doing new benches other than the art benches or trash cans or anything like that. We thought about trying to incorporate some sort of a plaque, kind of a multifaceted plaque in these art benches that'll be coming forward to City Council to consider here in the food truck plaza. But given that we're going through the master planning for the public art right now, and the benches are being designed right now, we thought the timing wasn't quite right for that. So just wanted to let you know that that idea was floating out there. I would like to come up with a good idea for that. If anybody has a recommendation, let me know. Otherwise, the plan right now would be once we finish that public art master plan, try to incorporate something along with maybe the first or second installation of art that could recognize donors that like to be commemorated either in the park or associated with some public art there. So that's all I've got.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Roll call.
Susan Skiris.
Yes.